Hola, hola, hola everybody, hola everybody, ¿cómo están? Espero se encuentren bien. Yo me llamo Jessie Feliz y yo soy tu presentadora de Spanish Swag On Demand Professional Learning Experience. También soy profe de español con más de 14 años de ser profe de español, desde chiquitos de kinder y preescolar hasta el colegio. My heart and soul is always working with chiquitos de kinder hasta el octavo grado, pero yo trabajo con todo. And equally as much as I'm passionate about Spanish language instruction, as far as like trabajando con niños, I'm equally passionate as working with Spanish language educators, world language educators. Actually, a mí me encanta trabajar y ser like como facilitator for everybody. You know, we all up in this together. We're all not just trying to survive the field of education, but we want to survive and thrive. And as much as we want to survive and thrive como profes de español, we want to set our students up for success so that ellos puedan navegar esta vida bilingüe con éxito. That's the goal. That is like the root behind Spanish Swag. So again, yo me llamo Jessie Feliz and estoy bien agradecida de estar aquí contigo. Whether you are watching me independientemente, si tú estás con sus colegas, sus compañeros de trabajo, todos ustedes tienen bienvenido. Okay, so I'm so excited para get started and let's get right to it. So again, bienvenidos a Spanish Swag en la clase de español. It's crazy we got to talk about Spanish Swag en la clase de español, pero we know a veces lo que está pasando. And again, no judgment. We are all here to learn, laugh, and grow together. Because with all the craziness, con toda la locura en el mundo, you gotta laugh. You gotta inject that laughter as well. Okay, vamos a hablar un rato sobre la agenda. What is our agenda para hoy? So, primeramente, we're going to briefly talk about the rationale. ¿Cuál es el propósito? ¿Por qué necesitamos Spanish Swag? ¿Qué es el Spanish Swag, right? And we're going to also dig a little bit deeper into not only what it is, but actually look at a music video in the form of a musical mnemonic device to help learners get excited about the concept of Spanish Swag. Afterwards, we're going to talk about Spanish Swag as an accountability tool. And I'm going to model that I do, we do, you do, collaborative and guided learning practice. And I will model for you how I use Spanish Swag accountability tool as well as a constructive feedback tool or chart rather, so that I can connect students together in the name of like developing and cultivating this organic culture of feedback into clase. I know oftentimes we hear about cultural responsiveness. We oftentimes hear about, ¿cómo se llama? Equity. I should know that word. We hear about equity, but we want these things to work in tandem and actually have this like organic flow with things that are happening en nuestras clases. Y la última parte será collaborative practice, where you, whether you are watching this independently or con un grupo de colegas, you all will have the opportunity to take the skill set that I'm sharing with you today and get some real-time practice with authentic student videos using the Spanish Swag accountability tool. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I just can't hide it. I'm a clown if y'all didn't know that too. So, primeramente, what fuels you as a Spanish language educator? Okay, para mí, yo tengo aquí dos cosas. Tres cosas. Primeramente, mis hijos. My children. My children definitely fuel me as a teacher por lo general, as well as specifically a Spanish language educator, because I know how much becoming bilingual has benefited me. And I just want to pour the concept of blackness and multilingualism for them. I want them to realize I don't want them to have to be one of five or la única persona de color in an advanced language class. I want them to have quality language experiences. I want them to realize that they can use their bilingualism, and I'm speaking in advanced multilingualism, so that they can connect with others and just have a different type of experience, more of an interconnected experience with people aquí en los Estados Unidos y también afuera del país. Also, you see I have un dibujito, lo siento, de un pasaporte. And that's because studying abroad literally se cambió mi vida. And then I went back and lived in the same country. And that country is mi querida Costa Rica. Detrás de mí la bandera costarricense. And hace 2 años y medio, antes de empezó la pandemia, I had the opportunity to bring a group of 5 individuals from Detroit, Michigan, students of mine that I had taught in a former year. And I brought them to where I lived in Costa Rica, in El Caribe Sur, in the South Caribbean de Costa Rica. And it was such an amazing experience because they got to see people that looked like them speaking patois, inglés, español, una mezcla de todo. And it was just such an amazing experience. Some students had never even left Michigan, right? Let alone nuestro país. So that was such an amazing experience. And I just know that your bilingualism, not walking around talking about trace burritos, poor favor. No, like speaking como una persona nativa. That literally, we have these phrases that have become so cliche, but they become cliche oftentimes because they tienen valor. It's just that they're used so much, right? But literally, we know that para ser bilingüe, and when you speak multiple languages, it literally opens doors of opportunities que no existen para personas que solamente hablan un idioma. I mean, it's facts. Don't take it personal, baby. It's nothing personal. It's just facts. So if we know that this is something that can benefit a nuestros alumnos, then we got to raise the bar for what we are offering, what we are cultivating, what we are coaching, what we are bringing diariamente con nuestros alumnos. Period. That's how it is, y'all. We are all in this together. So I want to know what fuels you como un profe de español. Go ahead and saque su cámara, abre la cámara de su teléfono y you can go ahead and escanearlo so it can open up un sitio web and go ahead and scan, post, and share. I'm going to allocate 60 segundos, un minuto para hacerlo. So go ahead, take 60 seconds. You can add una foto, a picture. Aquí tengo una foto de mis hijos. You can take a look on Padlet, different responses that other colleagues of Spanish or profes de español. And también, sometimes I have French teachers joining in on the fun as well. And so you could take a look at what others have had, and you have access to this link outside of this presentation. So that's super duper awesome as well. So take a look at that, por favor. 30 more seconds, nos falta 30 segundos, y después continuamos. What fuels you as a Spanish language educator right now? Voy a danzar, vivir mi vida, la, 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 la. Voy a reír, voy a gozar, vivir mi vida, la, 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 la. Buenísimo, ya. Okay, vamos a continuar. So again, you have the opportunity to access this Padlet. I love using QR codes while we're doing this presentation. At any moment when it's like, oh, I have un consejito para lo que tú puedes utilizar en tu clase, I want to advise it. Everyone, you should capitalize on QR codes, whether tú estás en el colegio, escuela intermedia, or in kinder, in la primaria. I'm telling you, it's such a great thing, especially when kids have their tabletas from school, their Chromebooks. They can open it up and bam, it just maximizes instructional time. And it's really good for people to utilize Padlet. It's gratuito, no tiene que pagar nada. I mean, there's limitations whenever something's free, so you got to know. Don't get all excited, think you're going to do a gazillion y no tiene que pagar, no? Pero la cosa muy importante is like cualquier sitio web, like whatever website that you want, you can easily download the QR code for that site. So it just maximizes that instructional time. So again, we're just keeping that in mind. What is it that fuels you as a language educator? Because, we all have different rationales and reasons for what we do, why we do, how we do, right? And so it's important to always come back to that and not to like compartmentalize that. Use that to fuel you. Let it interweave through your lesson planning and your lesson delivery and how you assess it, students and how you interact with them. All right. So part one, we're going to take a look briefly at the rationale, the propósito de Spanish Swag. What is the challenge? What are the challenges associated that have put us in this place where I had to create Spanish Swag, the concepto, right? What is the approach that we're going to use with it? And most importantly, what's going to be the impact with our students? So, primeramente, the challenge, the status of a bilingüismo en los Estados Unidos. Now, again, I am all about recognizing problems on a systemic level, federally, statewide, locally, all of that. I am not one to be like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that and just focus on me, because context matters, right? Sin embargo, with the context that you're aware of, what are you doing? ¿Qué hago yo? What am I doing? ¿Qué hacemos nosotros? What are we doing so that we can help increase the rate of bilingüismo? Not increase the rate of high school credit offerings. That's temporarily. I'm talking about setting our kids up for success so they can continue. Ellos pueden continuar y navegar una vida bilingüe con éxito. That is a propósito. So here's some of the challenges. Only 1 in 5 American students take a foreign language before college. Facts. Roughly 21.6% de la población estadounidense es bilingüe. And guess what? La mayoría de ellos son bilingües por herencia, no por su educación. Right? It's not coming from what they're learning in school. Not to the point where there's something they're going to be able to utilize, not majority of folks, outside of academic arenas. And we know that bilingualism benefits low-income children. I'm speaking about heritage speakers equally as I'm speaking about people who are first being introduced to el lengua español. It benefits them, and so by not providing high-quality second language instruction that supports their acquisition, it's a disservice to the community. And it's a sentiment across the globe that native English speakers, and let me clarify, Native American English speakers continue to notoriously be bad at mastering foreign languages due to historical anti-bilingual mindsets. We've had presidents, in current times, as well as historic times, that have had an anti-bilingual mindset. And that definitely has contributed to the reason, I believe, why we have such oftentimes not strongly supported second language programs across los Estados Unidos. And the thing that's muy interesante, we're going to check a look, vamos a mirar este video. Y me imagino que ese chiquito no tiene más de, cuando hizo el video, más de 6, 7, quizás 8 años, pero I don't think no tiene más de 8 años. Ahora ella tiene más, she's older. Pero I wanted to take a look at this video, and you can Google this. The chiquita is going to say, her mother's going to be asking her, like, how do Mexican people say it? How do Mexicans say it? Y por supuesto, you have to frame everything con sus estudiantes. We do not want people walking around here being ignorante, right? We got to keep it real. Say, oh, that's how Mexican people say it. This is a chiquita, and her point of reference is there's a way that people speak Spanish in mi familia, and I know that mi familia mexicana versus how other people speak it. That other versus speaking it como un mexicano, that's the swag I'm talking about. And I am not saying that one has to have un dialecto mexicano. No. But it's a concept of para hablar como una persona nativa. And so vamos a escuchar. Let's listen to what this chiquita has to say about this specific concept.
How do Mexican people say despacito? Despacito. And how do other people say it? Despacito. How do Mexican people say it? Chicharrón. And how do other people say it? Chicharrón. So, how do Mexican people say it? Tortilla. And how do other people say it? Tortillas.
It's tan linda. She's so cute, isn't she? Pero what she's saying is so evident. Tortillas. Tortillas. We hear our students say certain words, and do we correct them? And I know some people are on this tip of, you don't want to correct children all the time. Listen, to each his own. Let me tell you about una cosita sobre mi hija. Mi chiquita, yo tengo 2 hijos. Mi bambino de 2 años y medio y mi chiquita, y ella va a cumplir 8 años. I promise you, on a regular basis, I'm correcting la manera de hablar ella. And people are always, let me not say always, I don't like to generalize. Oftentimes, she is complimented for the way that she speaks. She's complimented, and she's able to do that because she's receiving feedback from her mother diariamente. In love, right? Because ultimately, if you are bought into your students and you recognize that both the individual and collective awesomeness that your students have experienced bring to you, then they'll be bought into you and what you are teaching, right? But this chiquita right here, she understands Desde que she can understand, ella puede entender la diferencia de hablar español de una manera versus la otra. I call that Spanish swag. That's what it's for me. Así es lo que le llamo. And so I want us to think about what are some of the most commonly mispronounced Spanish words or phrases you hear spoken by American English speakers in your classroom. If you are there independently, you want to write it out, está bien, o tú quieres hablar con su grupo, está bien. Pero aquí yo tengo una lista, and I always give this workshop, and these are the frequent flyers. It's trends. And we can laugh about it because we've heard it, but I want to like push us further and to think about when have we let it just slide and we don't address it. Mi lamo es. Ooh, it like burns my ears. I tell the kids, oh my gosh, you're burning my ears. Pero, para, CAs, octubre, telefono, azul. I mean, did no one check you that la Z se pronuncia como un S? Año or ano. Yo tengo, ¿cuántos años tienes? Tengo 14 años. Oh, I speak Spanish yet. You definitely do have 14. Tú tienes 14, no? Right? And we can laugh at this. That's why we got to learn, laugh, and grow. We can't just stop at the laughter. Because even if you have a student por un año, and I'm saying this, vea, con mi mano levantado, no silenciosa, because I got to talk. But I'm reflecting even on my own self when I've let this pass. Or the students being with me for a year and I ask them, ¿cómo te llamas? And they're responding as if I asked them, ¿cómo estás? Or I'm asking them, ¿cómo estás? Y responde así, oh, soy Pablo. That's un reflejo de mí mismo. Right? Like, I don't want us to extract ourselves, remove ourselves from the formula. We got to do better. If you know better, you got to do better, period. And there's no judgment. It's all about we got to grow because we know we want to set our students up for success. And in setting them up for success, we're talking about equity in world language instruction. I love this quote by Banks and Banks. Equity means to provide students what they need according to their social positions in an unjust world, period. Are you providing what your students need? Am I? Are we? We know how much bilingualism helps people on so many different levels, cognitively, culturally, social awarenessly, just like a career, academically, all these different benefits, right? So knowing how much it can benefit one, even their socioeconomic status, are we providing them what they need? It's reflection time. This is, you can turn and talk or you could just independently reflect. Again, it's not about judgment because I think people think of judgment and it's constrictive, right? We think about judgment and it's like, why are you calling out my issues? I was telling someone otro día, if I go see, yo me voy a la clínica, right? Y soy gordita, sí. Mami chulita, gordita. Y yo estoy hablando en la clínica con la doctora, uno doctor. And the doctor's saying, well, Jessica, después del parto de su bambino, I would say bambino, that's italiano, de su bebé, tú necesitas bajar de peso. And if I'm like, what you mean? How you judging me? The doctor's like, okay, I'm here to help para servir. But if you are like putting that blah, 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 how are we going to grow? How are we going to mejorar, desarrollar? How are we going to do that? So every question I'm posing you all, best believe, and yes, I said best believe, you better believe that I ask myself this diariamente. I had an end of year, because I've been teaching desde casa, desde la compu por 2 años. Ese verano que llega, voy a estar en la clase física. Y la semana pasada, we had la última clase colectiva de mi comunidad en línea de niños. Y como 2 or 3 chiquitos, when I asked them the question that we were discussing, they were confused. And instead of me getting mad about it or frustrated about it or annoyed, I had to reflect and say, let me write this down. Jessica, you didn't provide something, or there was some sort of disconnect. Did you just give feedback one time and not come back to it? Did you not allow them the opportunity to practice with additional feedback and then to actually submit something to you? I'm reflecting. So please don't think I'm not coming like I'm all high and mighty and I know everything. Absolutely not. This is an ongoing, but it's a commitment. There should be some conviction behind lo que hacemos. There should be conviction. And if it's not conviction, then there needs to be some deeper reflection, right? Equity. And everything we're talking about para to help our students para hablar y desarrollar la habilidad de hablar como un nativo, that totally aligns with these core practices from ACTFL. Obviously, we talk about CI all the time. I'm hearing comprehensive input. I'm hearing it all the time. Great. Fantastico. Are your students comprehending and being woke and aware of the manner in which they're reading and speaking and operating in the language? Provide, I think de todo eso, this right here, provide appropriate oral feedback. Design oral interpersonal communication tasks diariamente. 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 Todos los días. It should be part of the practice. So one of the main key points is that students need lots of practice time speaking the language, pero coupled with regular qualitative feedback, emphasizing the goal to sound como una persona nativa. I have been there where I've had my students practice, but they're not understanding. Or practice, and I'm not giving them feedback. And now con la tecnología, gracias a Dios, there's so many free, amazing resources que podemos utilizar to help out this, to improve the status quo of second language instruction and learning. Period. There's no excuse. They need mucha práctica, but with feedback as well. It's not enough to just have practice. And it's not enough to give feedback al final de la unidad. Oh, I'm writing here. Okay. ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿De dónde eres? ¿Qué te gusta hacer? And now I'm doing this cumulatively, like at the very end. I need to be doing this regularly, diariamente con mis niños. And everything don't need a grade. Everything don't need a grade. Let's talk a little bit more. So many of you have been exposed to this text, Understanding by Design, by Wiggins and McTee. I was first required to read this text hace 12 años when I was getting mi maestría. Oh my God. Can you see my grades? Sí, soy canosa. I'm not hating. I'm not going to die. It is what it is. And so what I extracted from that, and it resonates with me ever still to this day, is dos o tres cosas. Primeramente, we need not give a grade or an evaluation to everything we give feedback to. Qualitative feedback does not even have to be something that is quantified by a grade. If my daughter said to me, oh, I brung it. Pardon me? I brought it. I brought it. It's not I brung it. If I don't correct that, and then she has an assessment, or then when we're doing something, I brung it. I brought it. Qualitative feedback. It does not have to have a formal quantitative letter grade associated with it. And even more so, digging deeper about this concept of understanding, because understanding requires more. Understanding is the ability to thoughtfully and actively do the work with discernment, as well as the ability to self-assess, justify, and critique such doings. Oh, I love how they phrase that. That's what I like to call the W woke, period. Consciously be aware of what you saying. Am I consciously aware? I'm not a program robot. I must always say everything. But if you ask your student, ¿Cómo estás? And then they respond with, me llamo John. No, lo siento. Estoy bien. Thumbs up. They were able to, on their own, without additional prompting, to demonstrate that level of wokeness. And you know what? I didn't respond to that correctamente. Not just I'm going to give Pablo or John an X or a low grade at the end of the unit, right? And so there's qualitative feedback. It does not need a letter grade every day. So we want students to be able to use Spanish swag. I'm excited to get down to it a little bit más profundo, to self-assess, justify, and critique their own speaking skills. And by cultivating this culture of feedback through humility, demonstrating and sharing opportunities and instances where you yourself have made errorcitos, right? So that they can also feel comfortable to provide constructive feedback to their peers, and not only to provide it, but to also receive constructive feedback from their peers, right? So when I'm talking about having this culture of feedback, I think it's very important to share age-appropriate, school-appropriate anecdotes. I have to preface that because everything you did in Calle Ocho, in El Club, does not need to be shared, okay? Pero age-appropriate, school-appropriate. I like to give that example because then when they can see, when you humanize yourself as a second language learner or multi-language learner versus I'm an expert and I never make an error and you must be just like me, I would definitely like pull away further from you. This is not the generation of, oh, everything I do is perfect, so you must be in alignment. That's not this generation. That's not culturally responsive thinking, pedagogy, teaching. Nah, none of that. Pero aquí es un ejemplo. I always like to tell students about how I did not understand that accents matter. I'm so excited because we're about to get to the musical mnemonic device associated with Spanish swag. Pero I always like to tell the cuentito. Cuando yo era estudiante de intercambio en Costa Rica, yo vivía con una familia tica. And so, durante el tiempo de la Pascua, yo fui con mi madre tica a la iglesia católica. Y también eso fue la primera vez de asistir a una misa de católica, porque I wasn't raised in the Catholic faith. So, I remember at the end of the mass service, cuando saliendo de la iglesia, the priest was there, and I ended up saying, gracias, Papa, instead of Papa. And at first, he didn't hear me. He was like, ¿Cómo? ¿Cómo, mi hija? And I was like, thinking like, I got this, Jessica. I did it. I was like, gracias, Papa. And then somebody else in the group that came with us was like, you mean like Papa's fritas? And I was like, what? And then my tica mom was like, it's Papa, Papa. I was like still totally lost in the sauce. And then I like to write on the board, Papa, con acento sobre la segunda A versus Papa. And that relates to the A in swag. Accents matter, stress and expression, romance, swagger. Like, it's importante. But you got to humanize yourself. Show that you also have made and that you do make errores. Porque todos somos humanos. Period. And as equally as we should all debemos tener derechos, we all equally jack up things. And anybody that's coming with that energy of, oh no, I never jack up anything at all, you could just press pause and dismiss yourself and go elsewhere, boo. Because we're about this learning and growing, because we all do it. And even if you're an expert in your tribe, that's the beauty of language. ¿Cuántos dialectos existen? Debajo de la paraguas, a sombra de español. Think about it in English. You can be I'm from the Midwest. When I first started teaching in Baltimore, and yes, the T is pronounced as a D. How can I, como extranjera? I'm not from the Mid-Atlantic area. I'm from Detroit. And so I thought it was Baltimore. I remember telling me when I'm moving to Baltimore, well, se escribe con una T. Pero después de mudarme allí and starting to teach, I noticed my ears llegó a ser acostumbrada to hear Baltimore. And so I'm not about assimilating in a sense of perder mi identidad, pero this concept of swag is about la habilidad de hablar como una persona nativa, right? And so again, we are all in this together, but making yourself humanized in your language learning, it really goes a long way. So what is its impact? Spanish Swag will serve as an accountability tool para no solamente empoderar, porque es importante para hacerlo, pero nosotros queremos empoderar y equipar a nuestros alumnos so they could develop this self-regulating ear for the Spanish language, thus cultivating an intrinsic motivation to develop this near-native sound, which will help them not only just in the classroom, on the assessment, pero afuera de la clase, so that when they have a real-world context, they will flourish. It's not about perfection, but they will flourish. Isn't that a beautiful thing? They will flourish. Love it, love it, love it. And next key point with that, practice yields permanence. Period. If I am regularly allowing my students to speak a certain way and I'm not addressing it regularly, then what am I permanently etching in their mind, in their ears, in their ability, in their development? That it's okay to respond to ¿Cómo estás? With mi nombre es, when it's not. And of course, it's not like I'm not going around for una regla, wrong. Everything has to be based out of relationships, compassion, love. Pero we do want to raise that bar and let them know, hey, this is an expectation. Because I'm not just here to be your elective teacher. I'm not here for you just to get your 2 years of high school credit. I'm not here to be the specials teacher. I love that elementary. Oh, today we have specials. It is special, sí. Como profe de español, sí, somos muy especiales. But I'm here to help develop you. I'm here to equip you so that you can use this español and continue this journey of second language outside of my classroom. Okay, parte 2. Ahora vamos a mirar el video de Spanish Swag. I made this video el año pasado. And I made the video aquí in Detroit, Michigan, porque soy de Detroit, Michigan. I always want to give shout out to mi ciudad. And so as you're listening to las letras, pay attention to what the SWAG represent and stand for. Okay, ahora.
Instant, speak like a native, practice with feedback, study, get creative. W, woke, period, consciously be aware what you're saying. A, accents matter, stress and expression, romance, swagger. G, grammar check, conjugate the verbs, use the right verb tense. A, tengo un secreto, escúchame bien por un rato. Guess what, when you speak Spanish, it's not English, it's Spanish. So, sprinkle that swag, stop walking around posting like, yeah, yo me llamo. Dude, you sound ridiculous.
Hey.
Ignorance is not conspicuous. Hey,
speaking from experience, not a guru striving for excellence.
Been speaking that español desde el colegio. Hey, no más monolingüe, Spanish web drip, yo soy bilingüe. And you can do it too. Apply the Spanish swag, you'll see you through. Hey,
S.A.
like a native, practice with feedback, study, get creative.
W, woke, period, consciously be aware of what I'm saying.
A, accents matter, stress and expression, romance, swagger. G, grammar check, conjugate the verbs, use the right verb tense.
Remember I told you what fuels me? What fuels me is seeing children learning, seeing my children. We all learning and growing together. What fuels you? I want my students to have an amazing learning experience. So I got to bring an amazing, effective, empowering, developing, woke, culturally responsive learning experience for my own students. Because I want that for my children. And que descanse en paz, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. I wouldn't have that beat without him. Okay, continuamos. So let's get down to that accountability tool. So Spanish Swag is a qualitative, constructive feedback accountability tool. It does not, no tome el lugar. Okay, it does not take the place of your evaluation rubric. If you create your own rubrics, if you are provided rubrics by your distrito escolar, if you purchase a rubric, cualquier cosa, right, wherever it comes from, if you are working on swag and making your students aware of it diariamente, it works in tandem. Just like we want to provide, have practicing every day with feedback. Well, whatever you're going to assess the students formally on at the end of the unit or at the end of el fin de la semana or whatever you're doing, if they are regularly, diariamente, todos los días, acostumbrándose las orejas, then when they come to doing the official assessment, the swag should be there. Ese, speak like a native, practice with feedback. Study, get creative. You know why it says speak like a native? Because just like that chiquita we saw in el video, más temprano, Kenya, she only knows this is how Mexican people say it, tortilla, because she's hearing people say it correctamente. And if they were to say it incorrectly, someone would check them. It's magia. It's not magic, y'all. But they gotta work regularly in tandem. They have to work together. They work together. So let's pause for the calls. I want to hear from you all, and I want you all to be able to use Padlet to interact and with other colegas de español. Which component of swag do you think will be the most challenging for your students to grasp or to execute? Go ahead and scan, post, and share on Padlet. Just use the scan feature of su teléfono, and ustedes tienen un minuto para hacerlo. W, woke, period, consciously be aware of what you're saying. A, accents matter, stress and expression, romance, swagger. G, grammar check, conjugate the verbs, use the right verb tense. A. I'm not a guru, but I'm striving for excellence. It's Spanish. It's not English. It's Spanish. It's not English. It's Spanish. It's not English. Ese, speak like a native, practice with feedback, study, get creative. W, woke, period, consciously be aware of what you're saying. A, accents matter, stress and expression, romance, swagger. G, grammar check, conjugate the verbs, use the right verb tense. A. Okay, less than 10 seconds, amigos. Which component do you think will be the most challenging? And our time, ja. Terminó. You know, I love asking this question because a lot of people say grammar. And I really think it depends on the contexto de la población de sus alumnos. I honestly have found that sometimes grammar can be more, and también basado en el nivel de español, right? Sometimes I find that la gramática could be more challenging for my heritage speakers, especially if this is the first time when they're taking Spanish as an academic course. And then maybe the way that they speak Espanol en casa, you have to acknowledge and honor the way that what people bring to the classroom. Do not shut down and say, that's not how you say it. That's incorrect. Wait a minute. Their family, their community, everybody they know speaks in this form, and they are thriving, surviving, and doing the dang thing. We have to be mindful, consciously being aware of what we're saying as well. But we want to close the gap, close the achievement gap through culture. We don't want to be constrictive. We want to be constructive. If one student says, I remember cuando era maestra en Baltimore, not in Baltimore. Y aquí es un ejemplo, referring to la gramática. And I had a student, and we were on in capítulo 8 or 10. It was towards the end of the year. And I clearly remember the question was, ¿Qué ropa llevas tú? That was a question I was supposed to teach students, and they were supposed to respond with, yo llevo pantalones y una camiseta roja, right? That's what the Q&A was supposed to be. Well, I had a student who challenged the question and said, my mother doesn't say que ropa llevas tú. And so in that moment, and that was my second year teaching, that was back in 2009. In that moment, I could have been constrictive and, well, your mother's not saying it correctly porque según el libro de texto, according to the textbook, y el currículo, digamos, ¿qué ropa llevas tú? Niños, repitan. And I could have just eliminated and constricted the conversation, and I would have lost that individual student. But instead, I wanted to garner her experience porque ella es una heritage speaker. Su mamá es del Caribe. Su mamá es de un país hispano. So we have to remember that el lenguaje es un reflejo de la cultura y la cultura es parte de su identidad. So if I'm constricting and shutting down what your life experience that has helped shape and cultivate you, if I'm shutting that down because that is no está de acuerdo con el libro de texto, without even considering, without even entertaining it, how am I sitting up here confused and about why there's such a gap entre what is assessed curriculum, what is taught curriculum, versus what students are actually processing and learning, right? And so I remember asking this young lady, well, ¿qué dice su mamá? Well, what does your mom say when you're at the store and you want to buy something? She says, I'm sorry, it wasn't ¿qué ropa llevas tú? I'm so sorry, it was about the clothing unit. It was like, ¿qué talla usas? That's what it was. What size? ¿Qué talla usas? It's still in the same thing. And so she was like, we don't say ¿qué talla usas? And I was like, well, what do you all say? And she said, ¿qué size tú eres? I never forget it. ¿Qué size tú eres? And I was like, oh, really? Can you write that on the board? And so we briefly paused for the cause. And even the way she wrote it, she wrote ¿qué? As in la palabra ¿qué? She wrote size in English, S-I-Z-E. Tú, sin acento. No con acento. Huere. Porque no se pronuncia la S, como like, it was a Spanglish word that huere, pero en el país de su mamá no hay tan énfasis de la última S. And so at that moment, I never forget it. I never have forgotten. I've not forgotten that moment. And so I was like, you know what, class? We just learned another way to ask, what size do you wear? On this test, you have to be able to recognize que talla usas, right? Pero if you're speaking with someone and I asked the student, where's your mom from? And she said where her mother's from. I said, if you are somewhere and you're speaking with someone like that from this country, you can say it two different ways. You can say, now you'll know how to say que talla usas, and you can also ask que size tú eres. You see how that totally is different versus that's incorrect. That's incorrect Spanish. I mean, I get really upset. I'm not gonna lie. I get really upset when we want to say what is standard and not, because todo es relativo. Everything is relative. We say in the Midwest, specifically in Michigan, nosotros digamos pop. No one walks around here saying soda. Even if you go to the store, al mercado, it can say soda, and some of the signs, algunos de los rótulos dicen pop. No one from the Midwest is saying, what type of soda do you want? We recognize if it says soda. We know we may say Pepsi or Mountain Dew or orange or whatever. But that's not what we say. When I first moved to Baltimore, I remember asking the kids, what type of pop you want? We were having a pizza party. And I got so many stares like I was speaking another language. I'm like, this is English. And one student said, as in popcorn? I said, popcorn? I said, I just told you all got the highest test scores, so we're having a pizza party. We're going to have some cheese pizza, we'll have veggie pizza, we'll have pepperoni pizza. And what type of pop do you all want to drink? And the facial expressions were like, these are all Native American English speakers. So again, if I just shut that down and I'm not humanizing how language is diverse and it's not una standard because everything's relative, So I just want us to be mindful of that. And so sometimes I hear that thing about grammar, but honestly, para mí, I think what's most challenging para mí is that woke, being consciously aware of what you were saying, because that's a challenge in your native language. And I'm not just speaking linguistically. I'm just saying por lo general. Are you awake? Are you alert to what is going on? Right? So let's get into actual practice. This is what I love to do. Okay, so using this Spanish Swag accountability tool in your PDF workshop workbook that you receive, you have access to the Spanish Swag chart as well as this constructive feedback chart. We want to be eco-friendly. So I love doing this a variety of ways. You will see how I use this feedback chart as a background when we get to independent and small group practice with Jamboard. So you can project it and students can use sticky notes, or they can also use Jamboard to access it. Or you could print it out and put it inside of a page protector sheet. Bada boom, bada bing, right? But again, you want to have this poster or have this in their notebooks, in su cuaderno, in sus carpetas. You want to have this where it's readily available and it's part of like not just warm up. It's just part of like the routine, the part of the culture of your classroom. Again, and this is to help you create that culture of feedback in your classroom where people will not feel intimidated. And again, todo es un proceso. This is not an overnight, oh, I'm going to put the poster up and we all got it. No, a part of you humanizing your instruction and your journey in language learning, you also have to humanize the process for your students too. So let's practice a Spanish swag strategy in action. I wish I would have had those phrases not listed, but we're going to listen to one of my students who is going to read an excerpt that he was given. Sometimes I have students just straight up read a sentence or two from a informational text, a news article. This was during what was happening with George Floyd. So we were reading a lot about las vidas negras importan y las manifestantes y las protestas. And so he's reading this. So this isn't him constructing the sentences. This is not interpersonal. This is presentational. This is him reading. But I still put my feedback on this chart. As you all will listen, you can visually see to the left the feedback that I gave him.
El movimiento Black Lives Matter denuncia la violencia y discriminación que aún existe contra la gente negra.
Gracias, Chiquito. And so on the chart under Speak Like a Native, I gave him a plus for gente and aún, right? Those are phrases that can be jacked up. Pero why do you think gente is for a lot of students, why do you think they may know that? Anyone can think? It's because Como Mi Gente, that song is very popular. And so I remember students in his class were like, oh, we know that word. We've recognized it. We've seen it. It's in video games. It's part of the culture. Cultural responsiveness. Tapping into what is relevant, relativo para sus alumnos. Okay, so for woke, I highlighted that I heard him say this repetition, denuncia, violencia. While someone earlier told me, oh, well, that's under swag, or could that be under accents? This is not a set in stone S versus G versus W, because they all, again, my phrases, they work in tandem. They're interconnected. But I'm coming from the lens of, are you woke? Are you consciously listening to what you're saying? Denuncia, violencia. Does that sound like the wokeness is for you to self-assess, self-critique, and justify? Oh, I did do it correctly. Okay. Because you have to be woke either way, right? So for that is a focus area for him. Accents matter. Movimiento. I need us to improve that a little bit. Contra. Muy bien. We need some more assistance with that discriminación. Right? And I didn't have a comment for grammar check because the sentence was provided for him. But guess what? It's not enough for me just to write this feedback down. That's not where this strategy ends. Okay? The next part of this is, what's the follow-up? So maybe I have students, whether I'm working one-on-one or I'm calling them up to read to me, or however I do it. This is normally my 3-step follow-up process. I like to share written feedback, and it's quick feedback, right? Because I may have 30 kids in the classroom. Or if I have un grupo de 8 estudiantes, I might be able to give him in that moment oral feedback in addition to written. But you need to share. I like the written because especially when it's like, I want you to move on so I can attend to another student. This is very helpful. So I've shared the written feedback, the initial feedback. I'm not focused so much on this grade. Remember, you do not have to grade everything. This should be a regular practice of you giving feedback to your students. And by you modeling this diariamente, then it'll be easier for them to give each other feedback. It's such an amazing thing when the little kids, even my chiquitos in primer grado, they're like, oh, you need to drink some swag juice. Sprinkle some swag salt. They understand this concepto that that doesn't sound, something doesn't sound right. But then I love using free online resources such as SpanishDict, DICT.com, because they literally can type in the word denuncia. Since I had it where they knew for my groups, I tell them it's a negative sign. That means I want you to review it. They literally could type it, and most words they can not only just hear it, but they could get a visual. This woman pronounces it, a native speaker, denuncia. They visually get to see it. And while they're doing step 2, I'm working with my next student. Or while they're doing step 2, they may be doing this in casa. And then I come back, right? And they have time to practice. Then the third part is, now I want you to record yourself on Flipgrid. Another free, amazing tool to use. Okay. So it's not enough to just give the feedback, but you want them to rehearse and practice it and then record themselves or come back up to you or do a turn and talk with their peers. They have to do something after they've had time to practice from the feedback. So it's really like practice, feedback, practice again, and then produce. Because now I'm holding you to a higher standard with the swag. And then that also helps with this culture of feedback as well. So now you all are going to have some collaborative practice. If you are watching este video independientemente, shout out to you. You still have a link in your workshop workbook that will direct you to view the following videos and view the links for access the links for Jamboard, so you could still collaborate in an on-demand format. Okay. So all of you have these links in your PDF workshop workbook. And your task is to watch the videos below independently or in a small group, and then provide qualitative feedback on each of the students' Spanish swag using Jamboard. Compare and contrast your observations with others' comments. So we have Lauren, Judah, Cree, and Kendall. Lauren, when she did this video, her exemplar, ella estuvo en el primer grado. Judah en escuela intermedia como grado 6. Cree asistía a una escuela bilingüe, dual immersion, y ella estuvo en el 5º grado, pienso que sí. Y Kendall está en español durante ese tiempo, español 2 en el colegio. So I want you to click and watch their videos, and then afterwards click the link and provide feedback. At this moment, you should pause, and when you pause this video and this training, when you're done, come on back. Fantastico. So all of you just had the opportunity to look at Lauren, Cree, Judah, and Kendall to provide your feedback on Spanish swag. You all have access to a blank constructive feedback chart. You have as well the Spanish swag acronym in alignment with the musical mnemonic. And I really want to encourage you all to employ these strategies diariamente with your students, whether you're working one-on-one with students, whether you're working con un grupo, small group, or maybe working, or not maybe, or when you're working with your whole group, right? But antes de terminar, I want you all to scan, post, and share again on Padlet answering this question. What can you do to make Spanish swag more accessible to your students this year and beyond? What can you do? The concept of increasing this habilidad de hablar como una persona nativa. I'm going to give everybody 60 seconds to scan, post, and share and answer that question. What can you do to make Spanish swag more accessible to your students this school year and beyond? Essay, speak like a native, practice with feedback, study, get creative. W, woke, period, consciously be aware of what you're saying. A, accents matter, stress and expression, romance, swagger. G, grammar check, conjugate the verbs, use the right verb tense. A, tengo un secreto, escúchame bien por un rato, guess what? When you speak of Spanish, it's not English, it's Spanish. It's not English. Stop walking around here talking about some oficina. Oficina. Octubre. No. Octubre. Consciously be aware of what you're saying, because your ignorance is not conspicuous. You sound ridiculous. I sound ridiculous. I don't want to sound ridiculous. I want my students to have access to this knowledge so that they can be empoderado, empowered, equipado, equipped to use this español afuera de la clase. Con éxito. Not sounding bootleg, pero con éxito. Okay, mis amores. Please, let's stay connected. You know, jessifeliz.com is my sitio web. I have ongoing workshops that come up throughout the year. Some are on demand, some are live. Please stay connected. I'm also on a plethora of social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I just got on Twitter not too long ago. And if you want to bring some Spanish swag outside of what's available in your packet, I have posters, we got stickers, we got camisetas. We're really trying to just pioneer this Spanish swag movement so that we can increase the rates of el bilingüismo en los Estados Unidos, but it got to start first en las aulas. It got to start first en tu clase. It got to start first in mi clase. And it got to start first with me and first with you. And we can do this. So I am so thankful. Estoy bien agradecida por tener esa oportunidad de hablar con ustedes. Si tienen preguntas, por favor, mándenme un correo electrónico a hola@jessifeliz.com y tú puedes visitar mi sitio web. También yo tengo un podcast, se llama Jessie Feliz Spanish Swag. So búsqueme en Spotify y en iTunes. También tengo un montón de recursos en YouTube y otras cosas, pero let's just stay connected. Let's continue to learn, laugh, and grow together. And let's just do the dang thing so we can empower, uplift, and develop every student that we have the opportunity to work with. Adios, Chaito.